mentioning the fact that Kalista with the Hurricane was going to be able to land a double Infernal Drake stack amount of damage onto what front line that GCU could muster in that game, and EUnited were able to come out ahead with their first victory of this best of 5.
Yeah, the other thing worth noting too is that they really didn't use Infernal Dragons that well. When you're worried about a team comp getting a bunch, you have a Galio, a Renekton, a Sejuani, and a Trundle. So none of them are super like, oh my god, they have bonus AD or AP. It's usually not that scary, but like you heard them say, psychologically it's very hard to realize in the game, in that moment, we're behind a little bit, we can't fight anymore, we can't go for this dragon, and they didn't respect the power spikes quite enough that came in. So game 4, they're going to have to adapt. Going to see what they end up going with. Once again, looks like there's going to have a lot of tanks falling through, but the thing to keep your eye on is the Kalista this time.
They've actually banned away the Tristana from the side of Goldcoin United, so this now leaves, do you ban the Zac? Do you give the Kalista over by banning the Zac? Do you ban the Kalista and give Santorin, the quintessential tank jungler in the Challenger Series, the super strong Zac pick that's been like 100% pick ban throughout the entire Challenger Series? There's a lot resting on the shoulders of EUnited. It will be the Zac ban coming through, and we highly expect the Kalista to go here to GCU.
You have to wonder about that Thresh ban that they keep throwing out there. While I understand it's a very strong champion, it's especially scary in Mad Life's hands. Is it more important than a Kalista pick? That's the big question mark here. And once again, no surprise, EUnited grabbed that one first. Gonna put that theory to the test.
And EUnited may respond to taking the Maokai and the Cho'Gath again. They did that in game number 2. It was also the game they lost in 30 minutes, though, when they gave the Kalista pick over. And instead, it's going to be a Maokai and an Alistar locked in. So Zeyzal, well, he also had that in game number 2, and they lost that game. But we'll see if the Cho'Gath now falls into priority of Goldcoin United, if they're content just giving that one over to EUnited again.
Big question mark there, just because Licorice is such a great Cho'Gath, but maybe they're saying, all right, we want to actually get you a winning matchup. We're going to hold your pick a lot later. We are on red side now. We can guarantee, in fact, counter pick of the top side. So maybe that's something that they're looking at. They can always flex the Maokai up there as well if they find it to be a favorable position. Holding off on that Cho'Gath pick with EUnited not springing for it, doesn't look like Goldcoin United's going to either.
No, so Santorin here will lock in the Sejuani, and we're going to see Mad Life Taric for a 4th game in a row. We already mentioned the impact that the Cosmic Radiance and Mad Life in general had in the previous game, making it difficult for EUnited to completely run through that matchup. But, I mean, his Taric play throughout the lane phase of games 1 and 2 has been very solid. His Cosmic Radiances have been huge teamfight turning factors, and we'll see him on yet again here in this series. Actually, has not played anything else whatsoever. So.
And EUnited will grab that Galio with the last pick, making sure it does not get banned out in the second ban phase there. Also going to be able to ban out some of its worst matchups in the mid lane potentially. And like you were saying with the Taric, the funny thing as well is that the AoE heal becomes extremely useful in tank team comps because everyone's kind of stacked up on top of each other in a dog pile, and they're able to get an AoE heal on people with multiple resistances. It becomes a more effective HP heal. It's actually pretty tough to deal with, especially when they're invulnerable as well.
And we see now the second ban phase coming through. Cassiopeia being banned out by EUnited, so they're going to be targeting down on the Fly's champion pool. As you mentioned, some of the matchups that GBM's Galio may struggle with. The Jarvan ban from GCU is going to be an interesting one, as they think that Maokai potentially is going to go into the jungle, so they're hampering down on some of the potential champion pool pickups here for Licorice, but the Gnar ban will come through, so we won't see Solo reprising his game 2 role on that top lane champion.
Not at all. Cho'Gath is still available, so maybe even EUnited ends up taking it again. They grab their own 4-tank comp potentially. We'll have to see. Camille is the last ban that's going to be happening in this game. Still a lot of top lane focus, but this time more on carries and bruisers a little bit, trying to stop Licorice from being able to bully out the top side. And with GBM already taken, the 80 carry not showing, you have to figure that they're going to go with that 80 carry pick here and grab the top lane last.
So that looks like they may be getting something utility-based for Deathly, and it will be Varus, something he's played to a full extent of games. He played it very much so in the spring split, has played a couple of games here in the summer, and it will be the pick he goes here in game number 4 against GCU. But they're going to be content to wind up picking up the Orianna for themselves, which they, once again, had in game number 2. But they're going to wind up swapping around the top lane matchup this time around. It looks like they might be the ones to take the Renekton away from Licorice and force him onto something different.
I don't mind the Renekton pick just because it is a potential bully matchup. Switching to the Cho'Gath potentially. I actually like both of these. One, if you take the Cho'Gath away, it's just a really strong pick in general, and one of Licorice's best champions. This guarantees that he can't grab that. I also didn't mind the idea of the Renekton just because generally speaking it's a bully matchup and it stops Licorice from having a big early game impact. But instead they go with the Cho'Gath, going for a little bit more frontline. being able to follow up on some potential CC that's going to be coming in from that Sejuani first. Maybe the Kalista throws somebody in, and then we do actually see that last pick Renekton.
So the Renekton comes in here for eUnited. Licorice will have a little bit more damage out of his tanky top laner this time around. It'll be the first time we see Solo taking the Cho'Gath into the top lane in this entire best of 5 series. So Licorice may know the Cho'Gath versus Shen matchup very well from the Cho'Gath side. We'll see how he fares with his quote-unquote counter pick into the top lane Cho'Gath this time with the Renekton. We also see Dandy once again on a more utility-based jungler. The second time we're going to see him as a look on this Maokai. It's still a very kind of two-threat style composition from eUnited. Is going to wind up being the Varus and kind of the Renekton this time around, as GBM's Galio doesn't put out the most damage in the game. But you still kind of have that coming from the opposite side of Gold Coin United, where they basically just have their mid lane and their marksman of their own.
See, I actually do like the Renekton pick into Cho'Gath a little bit. I don't know if I've seen this matchup yet, but you do have the sustain to match some of the sustain that comes in from Cho'Gath's passive, as well as just having decent wave clear, generally speaking, so you can maybe keep up with that as well. And one of the things about Cho'Gath is while he does deal a lot of damage, he is prone to ganks. We touched on it before about his lack of mobility, and usually you gank him when he's extended in the lane because he's pushing all the time. But with Renekton, you might actually be able to set up some dives onto him where, unless his Feral Scream or Rupture are really, really well placed, he might be a little susceptible. That said, eUnited top jungle don't have the most damage ever.
Hey man, if you were saying before that Cho'Gath can get bullied around by a Shen at level 1, you can only expect the Renekton, who is a very early game lane-centric pick, to bully that Cho'Gath around. But it's going to be game number 4 of our Challenger Series Finals here. The last Challenger Series Finals we're ever going to see. Gold Coin United already ahead 2-1. They're looking to put a cap on it and end as 2-time reigning champions. eUnited, on the other hand, trying to prove to be the superior United team and take down the defending champs.
I like this one as well because eUnited seem to have doubled down a little bit on that GBM all-tank strategy once again with 4 of them. Definitely not being able to grab the Kalista this time around, ends up on the Varus, which really does alter the comp a whole lot because, one, the Kalista is great at throwing a tank in. It's another engage tool. Yes, Varus has that kind of as well with his ultimate, but he doesn't get involved in the fight quite as easily. Kalista can kind of hop forward, and as long as there's no threat on her, wail away on tanks. And while Varus can go for a similar Blade of the Rune King Hurricane build potentially, he's just a little bit more fragile in the sense that he's easier to jump onto and he can't get involved quite as easily. He can't set up those Ren stacks. He do have his W, which you can build up 3 procs and then get a big percent health damage done, but it just doesn't work quite as well as Kalista, as well as not being as aggressive in the laning phase.
He doesn't have the same objective control coming out from those Ren stacks either, which is something that eUnited definitely took full control of in the last game, taking 2 Infernal Drakes and a Baron buff for themselves before closing out game number 3 to put themselves here into game number 4. But Santorin back on the Sejuani. We saw him using that to great effect. Dandy took that one away from him in game number 3, but now he's back on something a little bit more comfortable to himself. And of course, we have the bully lane on the bottom side here. Rikara and Madlife go with the Kalista and the Taric pickup. It's worked wonders for them in the previous 2 games. And although they haven't necessarily utilized Rikara as the way to play around, you mentioned the strength that the Kalista brought to the composition from eUnited has been what GCU's been using it for as well. Throw the Taric into the fight and then wind up shielding the front line and the back line at the same time.
The other thing is that the Alistar pick not particularly strong in lane, so it looks like eUnited is kind of hoping for one of those slower laning phases that we had been seeing down the bot side the first 2 games. Last game was the first time that Kalista pick really managed to get off the ground and start snowballing pretty hard. So maybe they're thinking, no, the Kalista pick's scary, of course, but we'll just survive it early on, and then our 4 tank team comp will be able to dive onto GCU again.
This time around, we do see that Zazel has opted for the Relic Shield start onto his Alistar. I don't know if he went for the coin in the last game, but we've seen Madlife being coin Taric pretty much every single game so far. He puts a ward in the jungle to spot out if Dandy's going to be doing his blue buff. An Arcane Smash out of the brush will reveal that Dandy, yes indeed, is on the bottom side of the map here, whereas Santorin still on his, moving from his own top side to the bottom side. He went from blue buff to red buff, whereas the opposite side there for Dandy from red buff to blue buff.
Once again, Dandy a little bit ahead though. Gonna start clearing up to the top side, potentially. He's on his wolves. We'll see where he goes. This is one of those games where it can be a little bit difficult to find things down around that bot side, though we do have Alistar with great setup. Rikara might be able to dodge out on some of that, and Taric is obviously a pretty tanky guy, so hard to burst down too easily. Top side is where there's a lot of setup. It's a long extended lane. So we might see more action around there.
And so far in this best of 5, we've seen a lot of action being set up on that top side of the map. It's actually now Zeyzal's going to headbutt Madlight back in under the tower. The Ignite is there as well. It's an aggressive summoner spell choice. The flash away from Madlight now kind of leaves Rakara in the dust. There's even a teleport coming in here from Licorice just to cut off the escapes. They're going to get first blood over to Dandy.
And for the second game in a row, GCU's bot lane gets way too aggressive this time around. They still are down the extra teleport advantage. So once again, even if Dandy was not in range to come down and collapse on that, which one, they knew he was there because they dropped a ward, you still have to worry about the teleport coming in, and they get a little too aggressive. Well played by Zeyzal to get the knockback onto Madlife underneath the turret while Deathly was stunned up. Very tricky overall as Madlife had overextended trying to get that stun onto him. A little bit dicey, but no Ignite came through, so Deathly is able to stay relatively healthy through the heal. Dandy collapses onto Rakara. He's in trouble, and he's going to go down.
There's actually GBM that teleports into the fray. They're trying to land a Justice Punch to connect another kill onto Madlife, but it will just be one and done on the bottom side of the map. First blood, once again, going in favor of Dandy. So on the Maokai pickup now, as you mentioned, a very interesting play for the side of Gold Coin United, trying to, still force her on that bottom side when they knew that United was around there, but we'll see if there's any sort of response coming out now on the top side as Dandy's skyrocketing himself up to that side of the map, and Santorin is kind of just following in tow.
I like what Dandy's done, though, in terms of just dropping some deep wards and getting vision control for Licorice. You see one of the things we're talking about with the Renekton able to actually push in that Cho'Gath pick in the top side, something a lot of people can struggle with, as well as having the sustain to not have to worry about kind of that AoE harass that comes in. And you don't necessarily need to dive it. We were talking about how that's pretty tanky Cho'Gath, and you don't necessarily have the most damage to burst him out if he's close to full health. So instead, you just get vision control, buy room for Licorice to continue pressuring up aggressively around the top side, and you're ready to start potentially snowballing now. Sixes will be coming in pretty soon, and then you have great dive set up around this bot lane, and the fact that the Ballista got too aggressive now may end up falling behind.
Yeah, you saw the teleport coming out from Licorice on the top side of the map too. So even though GBM doesn't have the teleport to follow, you mentioned once level 6 comes in, Hero's Entrance, you still have a second global ability. So global advantage in favor of United. They're continuing to pressure down onto Rakara down this bottom side of the map. Piercing Arrow winds up landing as Zeyzal locked him up. So the headbutt pulverize combination. So United have similar advantage that they had in game number 3 on this bottom side of the map now. So now Gold Coin United are gonna have to be a little bit more hard-pressed to try to make something happen out of this mid lane matchup. Fly on the Orianna in game number 2 came up pretty huge, especially in the later stages of the game, but we'll see if he's able to contain GBM, who's already fainting down to the bottom side of the map. Now he's level 6. Dandy's coming in as well. Flash away from Makar. The Hero's Entrance won't land on anybody, but Madlife now stuck underneath his own tower. They are going to want it going forward and locking down onto him. The tower's being tanked up by Dandy. It's switched over to Zeyzal, though. The Ren stacks are there to land a slow. A flash away from the command shock. I mean, GCU cannot capitalize on that.
A little bit of a risky dive there by eUnited, very telegraphed, and you saw GCU doing their best to get in range as well to try and defend that one, but they're just a little bit too slow. Too many summoners still available for eUnited, able to flash out of that ultimate from Fly. And there we go, that dive. Very telegraphed at 6. Everyone knew it was coming. They just couldn't get down there quite in time.
So eUnited playing this one, it's not necessarily pretty textbook, but pretty straightforward and getting advantages in the areas of the map that they had started to do early on.
And you see Rakara still with that flash, able to pull himself far enough away that the ultimate from GBM did not finish him off. He tries to get back underneath, tries to get in range with the heal to try and save Madlife, not able to do that. Zeyzal kites it out, Ren's to slow down Zeyzal, so hoping that Fly can get in range for the ultimate, but so many summoners still available after that dive and first blood down there that they just double flash away, get away with the kill free. Not as bad as it could have gone. They might have gotten double kill, lost their turret, something like that. So good response out of GCU to keep it to just 1 death. But there's no reason eUnited can't go down and just keep forcing these plays available as soon as that ultimate and teleport comes back up for GBM.
This is solid practice play coming out from eUnited. And these are the game plans that they wanted to execute in game number 1, but weren't able to, and just never really got the traction to even start concocting in game number 2. So now it's going to be Gold Coin United hard pressed on the bottom side of the map. So Rakara came into this one as the leading KDA player in the North American Challenger Series. Definitely was the one that was shortly behind him. I think it was like an 8-point-something KDA compared to a 6.1. Definitely now is 1-0-1 in this game, whereas Rakara is 0-1-0. So poor stats. But definitely, once again, has the advantages now. And, he doesn't have the same easy engage as the Kalista did by throwing in, a very tanky Trundle, but he does wind up having that Chain of Corruption. He's level 6 now compared to Kalista's level 5. They could be looking for something else on this bottom side of the map.
Absolutely. It's one of those things that once you start falling behind, it gets worse and worse. Kallistas love to play from ahead where they can keep pushing people in, harass out, and set up potential plays. But once Kalista ends up on the back foot and behind on the game, she becomes very, very weak for the most part. Even though that 2-item power spike is very powerful against tanks, if it's delayed at all, she quickly becomes, you know, kind of surpassed by a lot of other AD carries.
You see now that bottom side of the map is in favor of eUnited. However, the Dragon spawn is not. This is the Cloud Drake coming up. So it's not going to be the, this will be the first time we don't see an Infernal Drake as the first Drake on the map. So we'll see if that kind of changes the perception of where these teams really want to focus or how they wind up focusing on this map. Zeyzal's going to pop a control ward on this tri-brush. We'll disable the ward outside of the brush, and pings go down from the side of GCU. They know that a dive may be coming, so Santorin is already on that bottom side of the map.
This is one of those situations where, as GCU, you probably want to swap your bot lane out of here and trade turrets, just because it feels like a dive is ever imminent down the bot side, and you don't need to contest that dragon. The one problem with that is the fact that you're down pressure in both your top and bot lane, so it's very hard to find an opportunity to push a wave in and set up that transition up to the top side.
And we're talking about the top lane matchup of this Renekton going toe-to-toe against the Cho'Gath, and Licorice, you know, he opted into this matchup, and he was the one that was kind of, you were saying, one of the better Cho'Gaths in North America, so he should know the matchup inside and out from both sides. Already, huge CS advantages over solo in that top lane matchup, despite there being not a lot of jungle pressure, just a couple of wards to keep him safe.
If you're able to win the 1v1, Jungler doesn't need to sway that matchup, just needs to keep it as it is, and that's exactly what Dandy identified and did. And like we're saying, it feels like GCU's hands are tied a lot right now. GBM's able to just keep pushing in the mid wave and roaming, is down CS once again. Feels like for the 4th game in a row, I believe, but in games 2 and 3 did not die early on and is able to go make these plays in the side lanes.
One of the factors you said that GCU kind of has their hands tied right now. It's very interesting because their early game plan was basically, well, we'll scale. You know, we just have to hang tight with eUnited, and we'll be able to come back. And this one, maybe we prioritize some dragons or trade objectives on the map. You know, Rift Herald for a tower or a dragon or something like that. But they had, you know, Rakara going fairly even on the bottom side. So we mentioned Rakara had one of the highest KDAs coming in here. They never really relied on him to hard carry the game until game number 5 against Tempo Storm. He bust out the Cogweb pickup and we're all in on the Rakara boat. He went 12-1 and had a massive game. But it seems that when Rakara doesn't have advantages, or at least keeps the other AD carry in check, that Gold United struggles because they lose pressure on that bottom side and they lose that objective control they normally have.
That's a big problem that they face, as well as the fact that now the enemy AD carry is ahead as well. It's one of those things that can somewhat spill over to the rest of the map, but we haven't seen it a ton out of eUnited. If an Alistar gets ahead and out of lane for free, you start seeing some very, very scary mid dives. Dandy getting caught out a little bit in the top jungle here.
No, actually has to pop his Nature's Grasp just to dissuade Fly from rotating in from the mid lane here. So that's a Maokai ultimate down, so if there's going to be an objective fight anytime soon, they won't have that for at least a couple of seconds. As now eUnited realize that getting some deep vision to try to keep that top lane in their favor might be a little bit dangerous to do alone.
Here's eUnited's bot lane roaming with that pressure that they have from being ahead, working into the enemy jungle to get some vision control.
They're going to spot a Mad Life Santorin combination that has kind of been the backbone, the crux of all this vision control that Goldcorn United has been touted to be very, very good at getting. That duo of synergy coming out from those two have been the big reason as to why they've been able to gain those advantages. Although it looks like Mad Life might be caught out now as Santorin went the long way. He is going to be able to be saved by the Fate's Call from Rakara, but that's an engagement tool down and a lot of vision going over to eUnited on the bot side.
Good thing they have that Kalista to save him, otherwise that would have been a pick-off for sure. And the question is, though, what else can eUnited grab with it? Even though they don't get the kill, forcing him back to base still creates a man advantage. They can potentially try and grab this dragon or this turret. Turret's at half health. Santorin's kind of acting like a fake support here, showing up, defending it. eUnited look like they're not going to go for either of those objectives.
A little bit of a faux support, but we have seen support Sejuani before.
We have.
Not specifically in this game, though, as he is the jungler still, has not role swapped. But Goldcorn United, I mean, they're still content. You know, their plan so far coming into this series has kind of been contain GBM in the mid lane, scale up into the later game. We have superior team fight. We have the ability to communicate better, and we will be we'll be confident in taking eUnited into these late game team fight series. Though they've still been able to contain GBM. He's only really been able to get a kill off of a 4-man dive on the bottom side of the map. They're content to, looks like, cede away control of this Cloud Drake. Won't be the biggest combat advantages for eUnited, but still eUnited now. This is the second time they've had a gold lead, you know, moving in towards almost the 15-minute mark at this point in time. They secured themselves another objective. They got about a 1,500 gold advantage in their favor, and if you're thinking back to your just short-term history of how this best-of-5 series has gone so far, you got to think this is looking pretty good for eUnited.
Absolutely, and once again, GCU does seem to have a slight scaling advantage just with the Orianna in the mid lane will become a huge threat in the late game, just with her ultimate having, generally speaking, higher damage numbers and all that compared to a Galio. So you would think that GCU this time on the back foot wants to play defensively again, just like in Game 3. Not quite as large of a scaling advantage compared to when they have Tristana and Victor, but they still probably want to take this game a little bit slower here. And the nice thing is, no Infernal Dragons. Mountain Dragon early on, don't need to worry about contesting that one. Or excuse me, Cloud Dragon early on, they gave that one up. And now it's a Mountain Dragon. And it is a situation where they feel confident now moving their bot lane up to the top side, start trading these objectives, just try and get to their later game items.
Well, you mentioned the fact that GCU was potentially waiting for an opportunity to get their bottom lane out of dodge and put them into the top side of the map. And it looks like that they finally do find that one. Now it's a bit of a tower race here. Top lane tower's taking a lot of damage from 3-man core. eUnited on the bot side are racing for it as well, and it will actually be first tower of the game going over to Goldcoin United.
Nice move to the top side there to be able to grab that small advantage simultaneously while working down this Rift Herald since there's no dragon available. It's very impressive that GCU was able to kind of get this advantage. Usually it's the team who's ahead in tempo who grabs the dragon and then initiates the swap and tries to grab all the global objectives. GCU showing that they are still able to keep up with this game in the macro sense. eUnited do their best to punish by pushing in another wave to the bot side, but Ricard's already down there, grabbing that one away.
eUnited have prioritized vision control around the bottom side of the map, so top side was a little bit bare. They did wind up getting Licorice out of there, so you didn't wind up getting Dove or anything, but they did wind up having to cede pressure on the top lane and lose that tower trade race, so they still have a gold lead at this point, but now it's been slightly closed by the fact that Goldcoin United got that first tower gold. They did split it amongst more members than eUnited did on the bottom side of the map. But it gets some advantages back now for Solo on this Cho'Gath matchup, who has been slightly behind against the Renekton and farm. Gets advantages for Kalista, who, as we know, has been behind the Varus on the bottom side of the lane at 30 CF deficit.
The other thing, too, is in League of Legends, generally, anytime you grab yourself a global advantage, it's also taking it away from the enemy team. So you get the first blood gold, like you said, shared between a lot of people, not going to spike someone super hard, but the plus side, it's keeping it off of Deathly, potentially, who's already completed his Blade of the Rune King. You don't want to let him get further ahead of your Kalista. Similarly with the Rift Herald, GCU is still on the back foot. They could have a hard time finding a way to use it. I wouldn't be surprised if, you know, 5 minutes from now we see a Rift Herald basically wasted in a sense, but at the same time you've kept it off the side of eUnited. So they are in full stabilization mode and they're doing a good job thus far. Yeah,
and we also saw Ricard picking up a call to kind of supplement the fact that he did die early on, just wanted to sit back and farm himself up. So while he's at a 30 CS deficit, he has still been able to pop that call because he just bought it so darn early into this game. So a little bit of an investment build for himself. It's basically caught him up almost in itemization with Deathly. The make or break point right now is, pieces of his zeal compared to the fact that there's an extra coal in the inventory, but he's finished his Blade of the Rune King, also has Berserker Skews for himself, so he will be able to kind of go toe-to-toe in some of these fights as far as damage is concerned. He's just lacking a little bit in the critical strike department, but he does have an engagement tool to kind of make up for it. We see GCU looking around, trying to find out where eUnited was going to be. Cool little vision toggle there from an observer shows that eUnited had vacated the area as GCU was putting wards down, and the Callistico spots them out down a little bit further.
Yeah, and this is kind of what we're saying with the fact that despite all those nice macro moves by GCU, they are still on the back foot. eUnited is living in this bot side jungle, getting complete vision control, making it very perilous for both Orianna and Kalista, to walk up and really CS the way they want to. So even though they're not able to snowball through kills and things like that, they're still generating larger and larger CS advantages for themselves and making it very difficult for GCU to play this game out.
And ever so slightly but surely, they're pushing GBM up into that mid lane too, and by forcing him around the bottom side of the map, GBM is going to be able to close in with a hero's entrance at a moment's notice. So GCU had to be very, very careful about if they want to pull the trigger at all, let alone going in to try to clear out some of this vision control between Santorin and Madlick, because they can get hopped on, they can get knocked up, and they could have a Galio on top of them in just a couple of seconds.
And they can do that from pretty much anywhere as well, like you're saying. They can do it around the bot inner turret, they can do it around the mid, outer turret. have to be very careful about all these flanks, and that's why you saw at different points Fly and Rikara just playing so far back. And of course, like we said, the other benefit of this is that the fact Santorin cannot find the time to use that Rift Herald. They already have the top turret down. Can't really drop it up there. It's going to be too long of a lane. In the mid lane and the bot side, you are just completely pushed in non-stop. We'll probably see him just drop that somewhere soon.
We saw the gold counts here for the side of eUnited. They have a slight gold advantage. A lot of that's going to be on Deathly because he has a kill and an assist. We saw the first blood going over to Dandy on his Maokai, and those are the two guys that have the two kills in the game. So they're the ones that have the biggest advantage over their opponents. And as you mentioned, the Rift Herald going to be expiring. Santorin has to use it in a suboptimal position. It's going to be moseying up into the top side of the map. They do have Solo kind of giving a bit of an escort mission over to that tower, and both these top laners have their teleports available. So we'll see if Solo sticks around, tries to duel out Licorice, and let the Rift Herald get some damage on this tower.
We'll see. The Rift Herald has a long journey ahead of him before he finds his hibernation underneath the enemy turret.
Hibernation?
Yeah, I was trying to go for, you know, some kind of nature documentary feel. It kind of failed with that one.
I was going to say pilgrimage.
Yeah.
Long, arduous journey. It's going to get basically one charge and a swipe, and that seems to be just about it. Licorice is going to wave clear with that Tiamat and then take down the Rift Herald. And eUnited actually coming out slightly ahead of this one and start posturing around the Mountain Drake as well.
Well, I like this decision out of GCU. You heard the analyst desk talking about it, about needing to sack objectives sometimes. With this Mountain Dragon is one that they do not feel like they can contest, nor should they necessarily. It is nice for eUnited to grab it, though, because this will help them just kind of naturally force these objectives down. Given that they are ahead, Mountain Dragon will be very useful in the next 5 to 10 minutes when they start forcing around this Baron buff. It will help them immensely if GCU does not come face check it very quickly. And eUnited this game has done a great job of vision control like we were seeing down that bot side jungle. You just got to hope that they can continue that effective control when they decide to flip their vision up to the top side of the map now.
Well, you said about in his intro, Zeyzal, a bit of the unsung hero coming out from eUnited. A lot of the times it's his team fight decision making or his skill shot accuracy in those later game team fights that really winds up earning him that reward. And we really harp down on the fact that Santorin and Madlife are a big combination of vision control for Goldcorn United. So the side of eUnited, you know, their core, you know, their counter to that one would be Dandy and Zeyzal. We know Dandy is like a carry-style jungler, now kind of forced into this tank meta, so that leaves a lot of the burden on this vision control on Zeyzal.
That said, this time around, Dandy has been a bit more of a team player, mostly playing tanks this series, as well as going, you know, green trinket with Sweeper all the time. But your point about Zeyzal is absolutely correct. I mean, even that first play down the bot side, he had a really good target selection in choosing not to try and disengage Rikara, who was opening up on Deathly with spears, but instead realizing that he can put Madlife under the turret and flip that fight in a situation where they can actually start threatening a kill of their own, as opposed to just losing that trade regardless. Even if you peel Rikara there, you're still going to have lost that trade. So he takes a losing situation and finds a way to win it. A really nice play out of Zeyzal overall, and really kind of the backbone of this lead that they've built.
See if now he can find some interesting angles of engagement with this Alistar. Has his flash available, headbutt pulverize, and picked up a pair of mobility boots. So mobility boots and Cloud Drake may be one of the reasons that Zeyzal can actually put this advantage that eUnited has gained to, you know, I'm gonna say to their advantage, but that's saying the same word twice. So now I'm stuck on your pilgrimage thing in the top lane.
He's got a speedy cow.
There you go.
That's the point you're making. That's a fast cow. Look at him go. He's even got home guards now.
He's gonna move fast. That's about it. But
well, that was a pun for a freak. I'm sure he's enjoying that on the analyst desk. So now we got to see what they can do around the top side. So you see that they've positioned Varus up into the top lane after being down the bot side the entire time. Top laners are now down there because the big objective is that Baron buff. And they don't have a great team comp for doing it on the side of eUnited. They do have the Blade of the Rune King, which adds some nice damage, but obviously someone where it just has an Alistar, a Galio, and a Maokai will not be really burning that down that quickly. So GCU can play it a little bit slower. They do have the Mountain Dragon to worry about, but just a single one of them won't substantially change the time it takes to take it down.
So eUnited trying to pressure on this top side. Now we'll see Zeyzal and Dandy seeing if they can transition that bottom lane vision control that they've kind of had a vice grip on over into the top side of the map. Of course, pressuring down on that top lane outer tower. It's only one tower apiece, though, and only 2 kills have gone down. So both these teams taking this game slowly but surely. If you're Goldcorn United, this is match point for you to become 2-time Challenger Series champions. If you're eUnited, you don't want to blow that here, and you want to try to force a deciding game 5. Is Zeyzal going to get stunned up? Just decides to walk away. Says that control ward's not worth dying.
Not worth risking their life for. Good job by GCU contesting this vision, not rolling over and completely giving it up. very smart out of GCU overall, because when it was down the bot side and eUnited was being very aggressive with the vision control, GCU was playing it a lot slower. They don't want to risk a pick off when there's no real objective up on that side of the map. And then, of course, you can just back off some CS and give a little bit of that up to avoid giving up the big play. Now that it's around the Baron buff, they are being a lot more aggressive in their defense.
Ooh, command shockwave locked up on the Deathly, and Solo's gonna flash forward and feast onto that virus. Now a teleport is coming in from Licorice here. The fight has already gone in favor of GCU. Nature's Grasp looking to turn this around, but the Cosmic Radiance is there. Rakara's hopping and skipping and throwing spears in the front line. Rens through onto Licorice and picks up a kill. And we finally have a fight, Mark, as GCU dive through to the tower. A double kill for Callista.
A 4-0 overall for GCU. They swing right back into this game, and it happens around the mid lane, so they're going to go right towards this Baron buff and try and steal this one away. The gold lead has completely equalized off of some great defensive play in the mid game out of GCU.
As you mentioned before, GCU, they play together as a team, and they're looking for the fights as one to try to turn this one around. We're going to see Fly taking down a mid lane tower at the same time, and the Baron that eUnited was painstakingly setting up for the past 4 minutes will now have a ton of spears in it, and it will go down in favor of GCU.
Take another look at that team fight in a moment, I'm sure, because there was a big mistake out of Deathly there going down early on that team fight. A good shockwave out of Fly to set that one up. So you see them getting a little tired of this slow play. They want to open up onto Solo there, but it's just not worth it given that you're blowing your flash on your 80 carry. They might not have known that Fly was still positioned behind there, but it was a very, very aggressive play. Definitely goes down for it early on, and then we're talking about this team comp out of eUnited. It is completely low damage. The only big threat is Deathly, and if he goes down like that, it's a pretty easy chase down for the rest of GCU. They don't really have to be scared of anyone in particular. Rakara joins in on this fight and is able to pick up a double kill off the backside, like you were saying.
And we saw Licorice teleporting into that fight, but he's not the big beefy Renekton he was in game number 3. This time around, he's gone pretty much toe-to-toe even with Solo on that top lane matchup, so he doesn't have a lot of advantages. Sure, he's still got a Black Cleaver and a Titanic Hydra at this point in time, but in that fight, he was not the same force that he was in game 3.
I mean, it's very hard to be the same force because eUnited's team comp needs to be aggressing. They need to be the one diving, and if they're peeling, they do have some decent tools with the Maokai and things like that, but if your 80 carry is already dead, you have 0 chance of winning that fight. So you can no longer go in and try and absorb a lot of damage while, you know, out DPSing them compared to how much they're doing to you. When you're in retreat mode, a Renekton's going to do nothing. So even though he teleports in, they've already lost the fight with Deathly going down. So just a tragic, tragic fight out of eUnited there. And already GCU ballooning their gold lead.
Yeah, they were behind at this point not that long ago, and now they're taking about a 3,000 gold advantage. Now they have a Cho'Gath split pushing on the bottom lane, and a core group of 4 pushing up in the mid lane. So where eUnited were the ones in control of this game for the first 24 minutes, it has swung into Goldcoin United's favor now. And eUnited, you know, they have to try to keep their composure at this point. They're going to wind up ceding a lot of tower pressure, or a lot of turrets, basically, in this entire push coming out from the Baron buff, but they also kind of have to keep it calm, cool, and collected, as you mentioned. They have to be the aggressors. They see the Chain of Corruption whiffing right there, and that means that eUnited are not going to be able to contest GCU.
I like the idea. You don't want to sit back and just lose objectives. Your team comp from behind has no chance of winning as Deathly drops again.
He just winds up going down. No summoner spells available still from the last fight, and there's even no Chain of Corruption, so Fly just pulls the trigger there. Now this could be Goldcoin Unit taking another tower, ballooning it to a 5-tower-to-1 advantage.
This game might be over, Tom, just based off that one mid lane fight. eUnited's team comp will not be able to play well from behind at all. They have very little wave clear and almost have no threat to stop Rakara from opening up on these turrets. You see how aggressive Santorin is getting under this base, and eUnited can't do anything to stop him.
Yeah, so Santorin just gonna brute force away the rest of eUnited. Still 40 seconds left on this Baron buff, and all of a sudden, just like that, a team that was down a couple thousand gold come out a couple thousand ahead, 6,000 to be exact. They take an inhibitor. They completely flip the score of kills. It was 2-0. Now it's 5-2, 6-1 in towers. Goldcoin United has just basically taken over this game, like you mentioned, off of one fight, one mistake.
GCU is going to go back and shop now, cash in on all that gold that they have, and then they'll be able to keep pushing down. Here you see definitely just no summoner's advantage. Fly spots him just slightly out of position. You can't really fault Deathly. He wasn't that far forward, still under the turret, but Fly just seized a moment of weakness and has that killer instinct, able to pick that kill up.
And we see them getting the ever-crucial Cloud Drake on the map, so they're going to have that match movement speed, which will be the big thing. But I mean, to be completely honest about this one, this has been eUnited being unable to convert on an advantage. I mean, we heard the analyst desk mentioning this one a little bit earlier on, not being able to, take the control of the lead that they had and being unable to close out a game. They mentioned that for Gold Coin United in game number 1, when it took them about 45 minutes to take the game victory, and eUnited were clawing back into that one, the late game scaling Tristana. eUnited don't have the same kind of fallback insurance plan in this game. The Varus, not necessarily the same scaling power as the Tristana. They don't have a Cho'Gath in the top lane. They have Licorice, who will fall off as a Renekton. And now they're contested the fact that Gold Coin United, off the back of that 4,800 gold Baron power play, only have one outer tower remaining on the map to force down.
They don't even have good tools for necessarily catching GCU out and insta-giving them, because you have the Orianna shield, you have this Taric ultimate, and so kind of what happened in that one game where you can try and blow Fly up if you get a nice punt back with Zeyzal's headbutt, but if you don't kill him in 2.5 seconds, there's gonna be that Taric ultimate coming in to protect him.
Gold Coin United now, look what they might have found as Zeyzal in his own jungle, trying to clear some vision, has to force the flash away as well, so that's going to be a big engagement tool from eUnited. Down on top of that, the flash Alistar engaged, not available.
One tool taken away from eUnited's playbook, and GCU's just setting up around this turret. We talk about not having great wave clear. Definitely is really the only one. GBM can throw out his Qs, but he hasn't built that much AP, starting to fall off very hard now as we kind of really start hitting this late game point.
See GBM trying to catch on to Solo. He's going to rupture himself out of that Justice Punch. Solo being locked down on here. Has to blast away here. He's going to want to get in the feast down. Another Rupture lands. Cosmic Radiance is there in time. Hero's Engine trying to go on to Licorice. And the good command Shockwave blocks him up. That's going to be multiple kills going out in favor of GCU. Rakora runs through another as it's a double kill picked up for Fly. Santorin zoning Dandy away from his own base. And that could be just about it, Mark. Gold Coin United, just 2 fights is all it takes. Is now they're going to try to just go for the ace before they go for the base. And well, they're going for it at the same exact time. Danny's got so many spears in him that he's going to fall. GCU, it's history repeating itself, Mark. 3-1 over eUnited in the finals.
Off the back of some huge shockwaves out of Fly's Orianna, they're able to find their way back into this game despite an early game deficit. Great defensive play out of the team overall. And once again, crowned champions of the NA Challenger Series.
GCU, couple different faces on the Rift, but the result winds up being the same, a 3-1 victory over eUnited. And as you mentioned, it was just kind of one mistake from the mid lane fight. One more fight after that, that Gold Coin United were able to push their advantages through and take their 2nd consecutive Challenger Series victory.
I was already thinking up ways to tie in the finals Challenger Series broadcast in the best of 5. I was thinking that this was going to go to game 5, but GCU shows that they know how to come back in games. They find the one pick off they need, their team comp out scales, and you saw how much of a lead they were able to build off that one Baron play.
And we saw eUnited holding on to advantages for at least the first 23 minutes into this game, but were unable to capitalize on them. And just a couple of missteps, a couple of missed ults, a couple of missed positions in fights ballooned the advantage off of that huge Baron power play for the side of Gold Coin United, catapults them into another Challenger Series victory. But eUnited, they look a little upset right now, but they will still be in the promotion tournament, but they're going in as the 2nd seed for the 2nd consecutive time.
Can't feel good for this team. A lot of it returning, especially the NA rookies. All of them have been here before. Gonna have to try their best to learn from this experience, and like you said, bring it into the promotion tournament. Fly had a great series overall. One of the big guys for GCU who were able to turn that one around. You see Mad Life grabbing the trophy already.
This one's mine.
2nd one for him, actually.
Yeah, 2nd Challenger Series trophy. Santorin's got plenty of Challenger Series trophies for himself as well.
Yeah, he's pretty happy about it. All of them getting a turn with the trophy. And Rakara getting his hands on it for the first time. He was with the roster previously, but it was Mash who was taking part in these games. So gotta feel good for him grabbing his first one. Fly as well, like we were saying, had a great series overall.
And he had some big shoes to fill as Phoenix was kind of the, we mentioned mid lane was the biggest lane of influence in the spring finals, and it came around again. That mid lane kind of made or broke the matchup this time around, and Fly had big shoes to fill for Phoenix. He stepped up and did so in a couple of interesting ways. I mean, he had the Victor pickup. He played Orianna twice. There was one more game that I'm blanking on, the Cassiopeia game he ran away with in game number 1. So definitely coming in, filling in the shoes of Phoenix and doing it quite well.
Yeah, I think it was especially funny in game 1 when we were talking about the differences in the play styles. Instantly, he wins a 1v2. It's the kind of thing that just kind of makes you put your foot in your mouth right away. But like you said, yeah, great performance out of him. Santorin as well, I think, while not necessarily the flashiest series, did a really good job of controlling the first 2 games. Game 3 did get out of hand just based off their decision to fight some objectives. But here in game 4, again, combining to really control vision with Mad Life, knowing when they need to be aggressive about defending pink wards and when they're willing to give them up. When it was down the bot side, no objective control, don't care about it. We'll back off. We don't care. Top side, Baron's a threat now. We need to defend this pink ward. We can't give up our vision.
Yeah, and we saw them being able to capitalize around that by just kind of denying eUnited from encroaching onto their side of the map and continuing to put out that vision control. They're able to find the one little mistake that definitely made by flashing in to go for the engagement for his team. It's not even the worst thing in the world. He went for an aggressive play that eUnited had been making throughout the entire game, just did not see the fact that Fly was around the corner and pulled the trigger on the shockwave, was able to just completely turn that one around.
Yeah, you got to say, it felt maybe like they were getting frustrated. It had been a while since they had made a play. It was sitting at 2 kills for a very long time. They also were not getting objectives that were really snowballing and making them feel very strong. And opening up onto the tank Cho'Gath, probably not the best target to go for. Maybe a little bit more patience would have been what they needed.
Yeah, so it's going to be Gold Coin United coming out ahead as victors of the Challenger Series Finals. Let's toss it over to the analyst to break down the GCU Series win.
Thank you very much, Tom. We'll have an interview with one of our victors in a moment, but just for a while, let's go ahead and talk about this game while they get set up.
Yeah.
GCU playing to their team composition, able to stall out the game and find the fight they needed.
Right, so the United setup is 4 tanks and a Varus. Varus, not exactly hyper carry. I mean, like, it can, but if you never get if no one dies, then you never get the passive auto attack speed, and so something has to die at first. With 4 tanks, nothing dies first, so it was like a little awkward there. Like, I know Varus can make it work, but on the side you have a much more conventional team. The Orianna in the mid lane, obviously very, very good, and it felt like when one team has 2 carries, one team has 1, you just eventually wait to get to 3 items to outscale, and then you're kind of naturally going to succeed because you have twice the damage dealers with, only 25% less tanks to deal with. It's going to be fine.
And part of that was in part because Tristana got banned out by GCU.
Tristana got banned out, and then overall the comps from both the teams, if you look at GCU, every comp they had felt so easy to play. Right? You just press R, or you just team fight. That's it. That just you
Thanks,
scale.
Yes.
Thanks, Tarek. Tarek is, by the way, broken. Just why don't you play it or ban it, whatever. But yeah, they had these comps that were just so easy to play out. You could just form out, punish other mistakes, and you didn't have to do anything. And then you look at United, and they were just forcing themselves into team compositions that were so hard to pull off. And basically every comp they had needed to get ahead in order to win versus GCU. And then GCU was so happy with it. They were just like, hey, we're on stage. Everyone's going to play slower. Everyone's going to play more safer. So we'll just outscale you. And that's pretty much the story of the series.
And we have an example of that right there where eUnited was able to play into how they wanted. They dove the bot lane a couple times, but we had a great response out of GCU.
Yeah, so here we can see what the United comp wanted to do. They want to 4-man dive to bottom and just take the kills and kill the turret. But here, great response by the ADC. He just backs off, leaves his support to die, because, I mean, support lives don't matter, But then you look at this other replay where GCU knows they will get dove again by the 4-man. So they'll just like, hey, we will not get dove again. We'll just swap top lane. United didn't expect it at all, and GCU managed to get the first start even. So they avoided 4-manning bot lane, and they took the first start.
Right, and it's worth pointing out that the Cho'Gath is there with them as well. They're happy to kind of, okay, yes, they get first start, that's even better, but they're happy to trade objectives in general, as long as it delays the game, as long as they can just sort of skip the laning phase and wait till 20 minutes comes in. It's like, this is all in their favor. Both teams getting 5,000 gold is exactly in GCU's favor because you get close to the late game sooner.
And I asked you, what is that point that GCU was waiting for, and you gave me a great answer once things happened.
Yeah, so he had said that when you get to 3 items, the team outscales. The real answer to this game was when the only damage up of the enemy team mispositions and dies for free and flashes after a Cho'Gath, and that's really when the turning point comes in because, as you mentioned, you need an early game lead from eUnited. They need to snowball an early advantage, and they only got 2 kills in the first 18 minutes or so. So he said, okay, let's try to dive a Cho'Gath. Let's hope we can flash after him. Let's hope we can go for something. And definitely ends up just flashing onto an Orianna ball. It's like, well, when that happens, you just die, and then it's 4 tanks versus any team comp is always going to be a loss. And
I respect the decision, though. It was really bad in that scenario, but definitely you know, like when player does decision like this, you can know it tells you how much they understand the game. Definitely understood that if nothing happens, the game is lost.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of courage to just pull out some play like this, because you lose anyway, right? So you might as well try some big play and make the play that will win you the game. The point is that you don't flash on Choga. If he would flash on the carries, it would be much better. But then again, he understood what he had to do. He didn't pull it correctly, but he at least had the courage to do it.
That's right, and we have that replay at 23:30. Definitely looking like he wanted to make the big-time play. Shockwave coming in, and Fly just going big here.
I mean, the major issue is actually, I'm pretty sure Orianna was on screen in vision when he went for the flash, and that's actually the mistake. As you mentioned, yes, the idea of going for desperation is fine, but the execution is certainly relevant, and I don't believe Ori was a surprise. If he actually was in Fog of War, then I can't blame him, but if you did see Orianna, you certainly don't flash with a Shockwave in sight, and we saw actually with that flash being down, a second kill came in later on that ended up closing the game out, and again, you're the only damage dealer on that team, and I honestly want to give some flack to eUnited for, I think, repeatedly drafting lower damage team comps in a tank meta. I'm going to spitball a random thing here. I think Darius actually should be able to come back. When you're seeing Cho'Gath, and it's like, I'm picking a random team that can show up.
Very good.
I was talking about Black Hero users and Gnar.
No.
I think Darius legitimately, if you're going to play 3 tank teams, Darius loves that. He does a % max health heal for a bunch of slow-moving targets, and then eventually true damage 1,000. Like, this literally works for Darius. Like, these are actually his ideal targets, are actual juggernauts who can lifesteal tank and actually kill the things off. So I think we actually may even see Darius come back as a result in things like this.
But I think one of the big things that we need to touch on is not the fact that eUnited let this one get away, but that GCU continued to go back to what they needed to. They found the way to stall out. They found the way to get bigger, get the items that they needed, and then capitalize in those correct moments.
Yeah. So back to the Darius.
Yeah.
I've already seen it, and it's good.
He agrees! We're in there!
We got the EU seal of approval.
Yeah, but then again, when we look at the both teams, GCU is just such a better team, and I'm not sure if it's the practice they had or if it's the 5 games they played on stage before. But like, we have to say this to United: you cannot draft the same composition all the time and have the same win condition every game. It's so predictable, it's so linear, and a team like GCU or a LCS team will definitely counter it. Because if you have only one win condition, and that is GBM going off to side lanes, pressuring side lanes, getting dives done, teams will counter it, and you need some other plan for winning the games. So I hope that United in those 2 weeks before they play will find a new strategy how to win the game. Because if they don't, they will not win a game.
Yeah, well, let's go ahead and see how GCU ended up winning this game with the final team fight here. And there it is, Fly again getting a big shockwave off. Mama, there goes that man here after a little bit of the engage gets done.
And I actually thought for a second Cho'Gath might actually die, but then he gets 2 shields and there's a Taric ultimate, and just kidding, he's still invincible.
Yeah, hey, I'm Taric. I just make my team unkillable and stun everyone. Hello, and heal for 500 in the last team.
Easy enough game for him.
Yeah. Look at that, Ricard just going untouched throughout that team fight. It's got to be a Dreamborn 80 carry to do that, and we get to see the graph here again. eUnited had the lead that they needed, but you don't have your playmakers on playmakers. You've got Dandy, you've got GBM. These are your imports. You change those players out with the 2 EU imports from last year, and you get the same result because you put them on a tank in something that can't make plays. Like, yes, okay, LeBlanc didn't work out early in the first game, which is fine. We're a little worried about that. You find success in Galio and you go back to that. But get Dandy on something that can move around the map. Yes, they were banning a lot of Elise, but there are other champions there in the jungle that they would have been able to find success on.
Yeah.
Yeah, that again brings the meta, you know, like the meta shifted just before playoffs, and Dandy, he used to play Kha'Zix, Lee Sin, Elise throughout the season. He was carrying on those, he was very aggressive on those. Same for GBM, where GBM was playing LeBlanc when LeBlanc was meta. And that was everything that they needed, but then a new meta comes, and they don't even shift their champion pool, and they don't know what to play, and then that's what happens when you don't adapt to meta. You have to play what's the strongest.
Well, our interview's all set, so let's head back to the side stage where Tom is standing by with GCU's jungler.
Thanks a lot, guys. I'm standing here with Santorin, victorious after a 3-1 victory. So I got to ask you, how does it feel to not only take the 3-1 victory, but to do it twice over eUnited?
It feels really good. I think the main thing is, like, last time we won as well. we're more like focused on actually like promotions. Like we really want to win promotions this time around, since last time we came really close. So I think, yes, it's really nice to win today, but that's not really like what we're focusing on.
Well, I do have to mention one thing, because during the games, we saw a lot of picks and bans revolving around the fact that we are now in a tank meta game, and you seem to do pretty well in that kind of style. So talk to me a little bit about just the tanky champions, the prolonged team fights, and everything that was going on stage today.
I think the tank meta suits us pretty well compared to United. United has Dandy, who loves to play carry junglers, and I think playing Syndicate junglers just like doesn't really fit his style nor the team. So I think going into the games today, we just want to ban elites. We just want to put them on tank and just go for team fights. And I think this meta is like one team fight will like win or lose the game. So your carries started to play really well, and I'm really happy like I have a really good team around me.
Yeah, well, we definitely saw illustrated to a T that the one team fight completely won the game for you guys in that last game. You guys had a game plan that we heard you talking about earlier going on, that you really wanted to focus on the mid lane. You wanted to keep GBM from kind of making plays happen. Even when he got the Galio pickup, he still kind of seemed to be a little bit of a neutralized factor here. Was that something that you and Fly specifically were working on together?
So it's in early game, it's really hard to play around Galio. I think like they have a lot of potential to make plays. I think United didn't really utilize it to like the best potential. I think especially last game, like they could have snowballed a lot harder. And I think because of that, like it was a lot easier for us to like come back in the game. So I do like think that we were playing like sort of well around it, but I think they could do even more.
I want to take a step back now. You have won the Challenger Series final, so you will be going into the promotion tournament as the #1 Challenger Series seed. You mentioned before you're already kind of focusing on that as a team and more looking ahead towards that. So normally you wind up going and saying, hey, who do you want to play against? We don't really know who's going to be in there from the NALCS. I got to ask you, who do you not want to see in the promotion tournament?
I really do not want to see Team Liquid in relegations. I think they're actually a really strong team. I think if they have more time, they'll probably be like a playoff contender for sure. So like Team Liquid is probably like the only one that comes to my mind where I think they're a lot stronger than what their standings shows.
All right, well, you heard it from Santorin first. He's afraid of Team Liquid, but there's still plenty of time left in the North American Challenge, North American LCS to see who gets in the promotion tournament. So I want to say congratulations and thank you for the interview and good luck in the promotion tournament.
Thank you.
All right, guys, take it back on the analyst desk.
All right. Well, afraid of Liquid, paid by Steve.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks. Great cast on the day. And we got to see Santorin in that interview there say that the tank meta suited him pretty well. You seem to agree there,
he was
Freeze.
very comfortable on these champions. He played them even before Cinder got buffed. So when Cinder got buffed, you knew that it's Santorin's meta and it's Santorin's time to shine. And he did. He played he was performing very well, consistent. He didn't do any mistakes that would cost them the game. And he was very solid CC tank that you need to have from a jungler.
How about you yourself? Thoughts on Santorin there, Freak?
Yeah, I mean, Santorin was all around very solid. I mean, as you mentioned, kind of the whole team was kind of playing better and making good choices. So I think they deserve the win.
All right, well, everyone stepped up on the Rift today for the championship final, but one player stood above the rest to earn our award for player of the series, and today that was Fly. Fly was smoother than Jiffy. That dude was all over the place and stepped up with the big challenge in the mid lane against GBM. We hyped up how strong GBM has been throughout the series, and he's continually getting stopped here by Fly.
I mean, and Fly, I think, definitely played the series well. He played 4 teamfight mages, Cassiopeia, Orianna. A Victor lost, but not really his fault so much to be said. I thought he was a very, very solid player overall, and, you know, I think he had adapted well. A lot of great games, and, you know, just very much happy with how he performed.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right, so there it is. You can just see those numbers on the graphs there. A huge reason for that victory. Golcon United have claimed victory and the title of Challenger Summer Champion, but neither team is finished just yet. Following the conclusion of the LCS Summer Split, both GCU and eUnited will get another shot to take down the bottom teams in the LCS in a double elimination bracket, August 11th to 13th. But those LCS teams aren't locked in yet, and we'll get to see some of the potentials fight their way out with the return of the NALCS tomorrow night. In our first match, Phoenix 1 will look to climb out of last place against Echo Fox, and then Team Liquid will try and defend themselves from the onslaught of first place Immortals. Thoughts on that, guys?
Immortals probably going to win. You know, as much as Santorin's afraid of Liquid, I think Immortals is going to be too tough of a task. I don't think Mickey's going to suddenly make this team win, nor will Dardoch. But yeah, I mean, Phoenix 1 just seems like they're in a really rough spot and going to keep falling down unless they can turn something back.
Yeah, Freeze, are you still on the Mike Young hype train? Doot, doot.
Not really. But yeah, like I think Immortals is just one of the best teams right now. They've been performing so well, so consistent, and the meta suits them well as well. So I don't think you know, like anything can happen with bringing new players in, but I think just Immortals is the best team right now in NALCS.
All right, well, those matches will be tomorrow. So with that, our coverage of the 2017 NA Challenger Series comes to a close. Congratulations once again to Goldcoin United for earning the title of Challenger Champions, the last ever, as we retire the Challenger Series for permanent partnership and the Academy League. More details around the Academy League will be available as we approach the 2018 season, so keep an eye out for those announcements. But that's going to do it from us here. So on behalf of myself, the analyst, the caster, Freak, and the entire Challenger broadcast crew, thank you so much for watching, and join us in celebrating the NA Challenger Series. Have a great night, and you can touch the browser.
Oh, thank you.
Welcome.